What if I told you that a single look, just one glance between Meech and Detective Jin could change everything in the finale? Episode 8 of BMF Season 4 wasn't just another setup episode, it was packed with quiet moves, coded language, and hidden signals. Some things were said without words, and unless you were really paying attention, you probably missed it. But don't worry, I caught them all. Let's break down every clue you missed in Episode 8. Episode 8 opens with tension already thick in the air. Meech is still expanding his empire in Atlanta, but the weight of holding everything together is starting to show. The camera doesn't focus on flashy violence or loud drama right away. Instead, it gives us quiet pressure. It's that kind of calm before the storm that lets you know something big is coming. Terry, on the other hand, is trying to keep things together back in Detroit, and it's not going well. The crew is starting to lose discipline, and old loyalties are starting to crack. We see small signs of this throughout the episode: side eyes from crew members, hesitation in response to direct orders, and that one heated argument at the stash house. All of it matters. The family might still look tight from the outside, but inside, things are splintering. Back in Atlanta, Meech is playing chess with real sharks. New allies are watching him just as closely as his enemies. The scenes with Goldie are more than just fun conversations, there's strategy behind every word. Even the way Goldie leans in when she talks, or how Meech stays quiet before responding, shows you how high the stakes are. These characters are always sizing each other up, even when they're laughing. That's what makes BMF different. Nobody says exactly what they mean, but everything means something. Meanwhile, Detective Jin and Bryant aren't backing down. Episode 8 gives us more of Jin's strategic approach. She isn't trying to force a bust. She's gathering leverage. That meeting in the hallway with the I wasn't filler. She's setting a trap. And the look she gives Meech later in the episode. That wasn't random either. It felt like a warning, or maybe even a message. But we'll get into that in the next section when we break down the clues you missed. And let's not forget the family. Lucille and Charles are still dealing with the fallout of their fractured marriage. Charles is trying to make things right, but Lucille isn't giving in so easily. These small family moments might not seem important next to the street moves, but BMF always reminds us, everything starts at home. If the family is broken, everything else falls apart eventually. The final scenes of Episode 8 bring the tension full circle. Terry has a close call that feels way too convenient. Meech gets a phone call that changes his whole mood, and the music choice in that last scene. It wasn't just for style, it was a signal. Something's about to go down. The writers want us to feel the buildup. It's all leading to something explosive. What makes Episode 8 so interesting isn't just what happens. It's what doesn't happen, and how that silence says more than words ever could. In the next section, we'll go deeper into those hidden details, background objects, subtle glances, and lines of dialogue that were easy to miss, but reveal everything. If you weren't watching closely, Episode 8 might have looked like a regular setup episode, but trust me, the devil was in the details. Let's talk about the visual clues you probably missed that say a lot more than what was being said out loud. Let's start with the stash house scene. During that tense argument between Terry and one of the younger crew members, there's a shot where the camera lingers just a bit too long on the duffel bag near the window. Most people would brush past it, it's just a bag, right? But here's the thing, that same bag shows up later in the episode during a completely different scene, in a totally different location. That's not a mistake. It tells us that someone is moving product behind Terry's back. Someone's been double dipping, and that tiny bag is the visual breadcrumb the writers left behind. Now, if you go back and rewatch the club scene with Meech in Atlanta, you'll notice something else. The camera glides across the VIP section and lands for a few seconds on a man in a green velvet jacket. He doesn't speak. He doesn't interact with anyone, but he's staring directly at Meech. Here's why that matters. That same actor was seen briefly 2 episodes ago during a meeting with another rival crew. He wasn't named. No lines, just presence. That's a setup. The showrunners are planting faces early, building tension without telling you outright. That green jacket. That's going to matter later, probably in Episode 9 or the finale. Let's talk about symbolism, something BMF uses quietly, but often. In Episode 8, we get multiple mirror shots. Characters talking to themselves in mirrors, or looking into reflections, and not just once. Charles, Lucille, and even Bryant all get a moment like this. Why is that important? It's a subtle way of showing inner conflict. Characters are facing their own lies. And whenever you see a mirror in this show, it usually means someone's going to make a choice that splits their path, loyalty or betrayal, silence or confession. Keep your eye on the mirrors. Another visual cue that slipped past a lot of people happened in Detective Jin's office. There's a corkboard behind her that's usually out of focus. But in episode 8, they let it come into view for a split second while she's on the phone. You can clearly see a photo pinned on it, a blurry surveillance pic of someone that looks a lot like K9. Now, nobody points it out. Nobody talks about it, but that means Jin's reach is wider than we thought. It also hints that she's tracking players Meech hasn't even dealt with in a while. Maybe looking to flip someone unexpected. And remember when Meech gets that mysterious call near the end of the episode. The lighting in that entire scene changes. It goes from warm tones to cold blue lighting as soon as the phone rings. That's not just for style. That's a visual signal to the audience. This phone call changes everything. Whoever's on the other end of that line is about to force Meech into a move he wasn't planning to make. And the lighting shift. That tells us he's stepping into colder, more dangerous territory, emotionally and literally. Lastly, pay close attention to what people are wearing. Costume design in BMF is subtle, but smart. In episode 8, Terry wears a black hoodie during the first half, but later, when he visits his mom, he's wearing gray. That color change shows he's in a gray area, morally, emotionally. It's a quiet way to show his internal struggle between the streets and his family. Meanwhile, Lucille is dressed in all white during her church scene, but when Charles walks in, the camera cuts to her hands, gripping the white cloth, twisting it. Her piece is only so steep, she's still boiling underneath. No words needed. All of these details, the bag, the jacket, the lighting, the clothes, they're not just decoration. They're layered clues. The kind of stuff you only catch when you know what to look for. BMF never wastes a frame. If something is in the shot, it's there for a reason. In the next section, we'll break down the lines of dialogue you missed. The words that sounded simple, but carried warnings, threats, and hidden truths. That's where the real power moves were hiding. If you think episode 8 was light on action, it's because the writers weren't using violence to push the story, they were using words. Not loud ones. Not shouting. Just quiet conversations, short replies, and one-liners packed with hidden meaning. This episode was full of dialogue that looked casual on the surface, but hinted at betrayal, deals, and decisions that will explode in the finale. Let's break it all down. Let's start with Meech and Goldie's rooftop conversation. There's a moment where Goldie says, "In this city, loyalty don't come cheap, and it don't come twice." Sounds like just another slick one-liner, right? But read between the lines. Goldie isn't just talking about the city, she's talking about Meech. That's her way of saying, "I'm watching you, and I don't give second chances." This isn't just a friendly partnership anymore. It's a warning, and Meech knows it. You can see it in how he doesn't respond, he just nods. That silence is his way of showing respect and fear. Now let's talk about Terry and the younger crew member, Rico, during the stash house scene. When Terry tells him to keep his head down and follow the plan, Rico shoots back with, "Plans don't mean nothing when the generals ain't in the same war." That line could easily be brushed off as teen frustration, but it's deeper than that. It's a direct challenge to Terry's leadership. Rico's saying, "You and Meech aren't even on the same page anymore, so why should we follow you?" That's a serious red flag. It hints that part of the crew may be preparing to go rogue, or worse, jump sides. When the soldiers question the generals, mutiny isn't far behind. Another big moment comes from Detective Jin. During a late-night scene, she tells Bryant, "Pressure builds quietly. Then everything cracks at once." That's not just poetic. That's strategy. Jin is explaining her entire approach to breaking BMF down. She's not trying to bust Meech today or tomorrow. She's applying slow pressure on family, on friends, on weak links. That line is basically saying, "I'm setting a trap, and when it snaps, they won't see it coming." It also hints that she may already have someone close to the Flannery brothers ready to flip. Speaking of flipping, there's a quiet scene with B. Mickey that a lot of people slept on. He's talking to Kato's cousin in the back of a car, and says, "Sometimes the only way to stay alive is to play dead." That line hits hard. It's not just about survival. It's a clue about Bimicky's current mindset. He's keeping a low profile, avoiding attention, maybe even pretending he's out of the game. But why? That line suggests he's hiding something, a secret move, or maybe even a deal. Is he working both sides again? That one sentence makes us question everything about him right now. Asterisk, let's go to a more emotional moment. Lucille and Charles at the dinner table. Lucille tells Charles, some wounds don't bleed anymore. They just stay open. That's heartbreaking. Sure, but it's also telling. Lucille's not just talking about their marriage. She's talking about the entire family. She's tired, and more importantly, she's done trying to fix things. That emotional distance. That's the kind of thing that drives people to do desperate things to protect what's left of their world, including turning people in, or walking away from loved ones. And Charles knows it. His response? Just silence and a nod. Another quiet moment full of unspoken weight. Asterisk, one of the most overlooked lines comes from K9, who barely appears in the episode, but drops a bomb. During a phone call, he says, loyalty is currency. Spend it wrong, and you go broke fast. That's not random. K29 is making it clear, someone around him has already crossed the line, or is about to. He doesn't say names, but the way he delivers that line, calm, with zero emotion, makes it feel like a threat. That kind of language often comes right before something violent goes down. This might be a setup for a betrayal inside K9's own operation. Or it might mean he's preparing to turn on the Flannerys if it protects his own empire. Asterisk. Let's not skip over the final phone call Meech takes. We don't hear what's said on the other end. We only hear Meech say, that's how it is. All right, I got you. Simple words, but the tone. Cold, resigned. It sounds like he just agreed to something he doesn't like, maybe a truce, maybe a hit, maybe a sacrifice. But he's already accepted it. That's the scariest part. Whatever deal was made, it's locked in now. And Meech isn't fighting it. That tells us episode 9 is going to be a war. Asterisk, every one of these lines was planted like a trap. Soft-spoken, easy to miss, but deadly when they go off. BMF doesn't waste dialogue. If a character says something poetic or strange, it's never random. These writers love layering their scripts with clues that only make sense later. That's why paying attention to the quiet moments is just as important as the shootouts. Asterisk, in the next section. We'll break down theories and predictions based on all these clues, who's likely to flip, who might die, and what episode 9 might reveal. Asterisk, now that we've broken down the hidden visuals and those quiet but deadly lines of dialogue, let's start connecting the dots. Episode 8 didn't just set up the finale. It practically handed us a roadmap, if you were paying attention. Here are the most grounded and most dangerous predictions we can make based on everything we've seen so far. Asterisk, let's start with the biggest question. Who's flipping? The most obvious suspect is Bimiki. That line about playing dead might seem like survival talk, but it felt more like a man covering tracks. We've seen Bimiki flip once before, and he's still living in a pressure cooker. He's surrounded by enemies, guilt, and fear. And let's be real, when a character starts reflecting on their life and talking in riddles, it usually means one of two things. They're about to betray someone, or they're about to die. And right now, Bimiki's been too quiet for too long. Asterisk, but what if it's not him? Asterisk, what if the real surprise flip comes from someone in Meech's Atlanta circle, maybe even Goldie? Think about it. Goldie's loyalty has always come with conditions. She plays for survival, not sentiment. That rooftop line, loyalty, don't come twice, could be her way of telling Meech, I'll back you now, but if it costs me later, I'll switch sides. She's smart enough to know when a ship's sinking, and brave enough to jump before it goes under. Don't be shocked if she starts working with law enforcement behind the scenes, or at least trades information to protect her own empire. Asterisk, speaking of law enforcement, Detective Jin has been too methodical to waste her setup. Her pressure strategy is working, and the trap she's building needs a trigger. Based on her dialogue and camera time, it looks like she's waiting for Terry to crack, not Meech. Why? Because Terry is the one tied to his family, his girl, his kid, and most of all, his mother. If Jin wants to squeeze someone, it's not the soldier with nothing to lose. It's the son who still has a heart. That's why we think she's got eyes on Lucille. Any threat to her could push Terry into doing something desperate. Maybe even cutting a deal without telling Meech. Asterisk, let's talk about K9. That phone call in episode 8 wasn't just some side conversation. His line about loyalty being Currency sounded like he was already prepping to spend some or collect. There's a good chance that K9 is about to break ranks. He might trade a name to stay out of prison, or worse, use his influence to set someone up. He's been quiet lately, but remember, BMF loves to bring characters back into the spotlight just as things explode. Don't rule out K9 as a surprise player in the finale's fallout. Asterisk, now here's a bold one. Meech is about to lose someone close. And it's going to change him forever. This show has a pattern. Every time Meech takes a step forward in business, he loses something personal. We've seen it with friends, with lovers, and now the tension around his family is boiling again. Could it be Charles? Maybe. Lucille? Possibly. But the most emotional damage would come from losing someone he still thinks he can protect, like Nicole or even Terry. The writers might not kill anyone off just yet, but the threat of death is getting too close to home. And once Meech feels that, the version of him we know now, thoughtful, cautious, might disappear for good. That would set the tone for Season 5. Meech without mercy. Asterisk, let's not forget the crew tension in Detroit. Rico's line about the generals being in different wars wasn't just attitude, it was a clue. That part of the organization is cracking, and it's only a matter of time before someone splinters off. Don't be surprised if a side character, someone like Rico or even Boone, makes a wild move, maybe a robbery, maybe a deal with the feds, something reckless that sets off a chain reaction. Internal betrayal is always a favorite tool in BMF's storytelling, and Episode 8 has planted enough mistrust to light that fire. Asterisk, so what can we expect in Episode 9? Here's the short list. A major betrayal, possibly from Bimiki or Goldie. Asterisk, someone close to Meech being threatened or taken. Asterisk, Terry making a move that Meech won't agree with. K29 returning to play both sides. Detective Jin making her move fast and hard. Asterisk, and for the finale. If BMF sticks to its classic pacing, Episode 9 will end with a cliffhanger, a gun drawn, a deal exposed, or a shocking reveal about someone flipping sides. The chessboard is already set. Episode 8 just showed us where every piece stands. The next move, checkmate, and that's the breakdown.